Welcome, everybody, to the Genesis Mindset. And in this particular episode or this live stream, I feel really blessed. Actually, I've asked Sunny the detective to come and have a conversation with me. So, Sunny is someone that I feel is really like an unrecognized genius in the space. So, he's taught me a lot about liquidity providing, and he's going to be sharing some of his alpha on liquidity providing, clearing some things up on some of his own projects as well. And so he's got A1A and the mini-ETH ecosystem. So we're going to be talking about that as well. And basically, like I said, he's taught me a lot. So he's got a place called Sunny's Pub where it's this really awesome atmosphere. And I love all the dudes in there. Everyone's really just sharing and trying to learn and work together and grow together. And it's just something that's really nice. And one thing that I noticed when I first came into it, because I was kind of late into it in the scheme of things, one thing that I noticed was Sunny's like a saint. He just answers the same questions again and again and again. And I feel really bad because I know what that's like when you have to keep answering the same questions. And I always felt bad asking him questions, actually, because I'm like, man, he's probably answered this like 1,000 times. And I thought it would be really cool if I could get him onto a stream or something, and he could actually talk about these things and share his alpha, and then hopefully maybe even redirect people to this so that he doesn't have to keep answering the same questions again and again. Because yeah, it's like, yeah, he would answer them like a saint. It was unbelievable. So it's going to be a bit interesting today. I'm going to see how this is going to work. So what we're going to do is, so we're actually going to present from the pub. So grab yourself a drink. It's in the morning here in Australia, so it's still not too early. You can have a drink now. It's before lunch where I am. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen, and hopefully this is going to work. I'm going to share the sound as well, and fingers crossed this is going to work. So we're going to have hopefully Stu in here just to collaborate and make sure that everything is working. So, well, first of all, this is Sunny's Twitter. So if you do want to follow Sunny, you can follow him on SunnyDetect420. So that's his Twitter there. So, all right. So now I'm just going to jump into the voice chat. So this is where all the alpha has been. This is where a lot of the learning goes on in his pub in the voice chat. So I'm not sure how this is going to work, if it's going to get double feedback. Okay, so everything's all good. You can hear me, Sunny? Yeah, good. Thanks, man. I just want to make sure. Can the people in the chat let me know if it's all clear, that you can hear everything clear from Sunny? So, Sunny, the first thing that I wanted to ask you about is I'd always really like to get to know everyone. I just wanted to know just like a little bit of background, like a little bit of your backstory. What got you into Pulsechain? And because I think you're pretty new into I don't think you're into Hex from memory. Is that right? Okay. So just give me a second, Sunny. Sorry, I think I'm going to have to figure this out. I've never done this before, so I don't know how to. Apparently, the sound is not being shared, so no audio. You guys in the chat, you can hear me though, right? Or am I also not coming through? Okay, so I can be heard, but not Sunny. So let's try and figure this one out. So just bear with me for a second. Technical difficulties are always fun. Okay, so share screen. There must be, I know when I do it with Zoom, also share tab audio. Application window. To share audio, share a tab or a screen instead. Oh, damn. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, let's see. Okay, Sunny, can you do a testing 1, 2, 3, and then can I get a confirmation in the chat?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Did you guys get that in the chat? Just waiting for somebody in the chat to respond. You did. All right. Awesome. Excellent. Yes. So, yeah, Sonny, just tell us a little bit of background on yourself. What I suppose, what got you into crypto? What got you into Pulsechain? And anything that you'd like to share about yourself.
Got into crypto from an old girlfriend of mine that kept pushing me on it, and finally found Safe Moon, which worked a little bit, and from there sacrificed a little bit into Pulsechain from a referral of someone else that had done well in Drip and a couple other things. Didn't really know much about Hex or Richard Hart or anything, just put a few bucks in and then kind of followed it and got to obviously see a little bit of outrage marketing, all the fun stuff along the way.
Okay, nice. And so basically you're, well, in the scheme of things, you're reasonably new to Richard Hart ecosystem.
Yeah, it's been about 8 months, huh?
Yeah, okay, nice. Okay, so like you were saying before, you didn't get into Hex, so Pulsechain was your first like foray into Richard Hart.
Yeah, I'm still not into Hex.
Okay, cool. All right, no worries. Thank you. So, yeah, let's jump into some of your projects. So I know A1A. So I'm just going to bring up the chart for A1A here, so everyone can see A1A. So this is one of your beasts. So do you want to talk a little bit about A1A and share some of what it does and what made you come up with it and how it works?
I've been trying to explain to a couple of people how liquidity pools worked, while I was also exploring them and new to them myself, because I hadn't really messed with liquidity pools outside of prior to Pulsechain. And just getting into the farm, I started to notice a couple of the numbers were, bigger than they should be, because there wasn't supposed to be any APR, and started looking around and started having some theories and thoughts as to why. So A1A was basically just it was a theory that with 1% of a tax, I could make more off the arbitrage bots than the arbitrage bots were making. And for the most part, it actually holds up pretty true. Not that I would make it, but the token supply as a whole. So I originally paired it with 60 pools, I think, V1, V2, and then I purposefully put those with a lot of the PRC20s that had little to no liquidity, but I knew people would eventually, get onto like Doge and Wrap XRP and a few of those things. So when people dump those, it basically just makes that liquidity pool stronger. And then A1A has a 1% tax that goes back into the liquidity pools and to the holders. It just sends it to every wallet. So the LPs are growing on both sides. And since there's arbitrage in 40 different pools, you have 40 different prices, which means no one ever has to buy or sell or trade the chart. It'll just get arbitraged. And with that volume, holders will get more A1A. So even if the price went sideways forever, you'd still be making A1A. So you'd still be making more tokens. And then B2B is the same exact thing as A1A, except for it's got a 2% tax, and it's called B2B instead of A1A.
Nice. Okay. And so do you have any recommendations for, like, for example, with A1A, would you suggest that people just buy and hold, or would you suggest that they actually delve into liquidity providing? And is there any particular liquidity pools that you'd suggest that would be really good with the A1A token?
Think of A1A as like a little engine, right? Like a little like a generator. You can plug anything you want into it, and all of a sudden your chart will have volume. So if you hold it, then that helps. The holding helps the most, right? Because basically with a 1% tax, all it is SafeMoon, except for SafeMoon had a 10% tax, so it did it really, really fast, right? But a 1% tax with this arbitrage is basically the same. It's literally the same thing as SafeMoon. It just if everyone holds it, everyone gets 1% of every transaction out of supply. You end up squeezing it, and it just shoots up, right? But if you also hold it in LP, then you're actually grabbing like 1% of the other LP. You're actually getting bigger, and your LP on those pairs will go up on the charts, your percentage holdings, rather than down, which is what they normally do. So it really depends, and if the token's going up, then it helps A1A go up, right? So like it's got a really big bond early on with the Atropic ecosystem, Teddy in particular. So like when Teddy goes up, it goes up, and that's one of its bigger pools, so it goes up rather well with it. And some of the smaller pools, some of the little tiny ones like Frax, Frax might not have a whole lot of people that ever found it. It might be $100 in there, but if it's plugged into A1A that has a chart that's moving, that the free airdrop people can come and sell into.
Okay, so there's really kind of a variety of different strategies that people can take with it. From just holding the token, you're still going to get A1A just by holding it and leaving it, and then also providing liquidities. Like each will have its kind of pros and cons dependent on your own personal strategy, basically.
Yeah, and the LP side, it's basically the same as any LP, except for one of your LPs is actually growing stronger, which pulls the weight of the other one, so it makes both of your LPs and the token that's attached to more valuable.
And so B2B is doing exactly the same thing, but it's 2% rather than 1%.
Right, and if you look at the top holder of A1A and B2B, it is the LP common between them that is burned, and that's about 70-something% of the supply, probably 75-ish. And that's something very similar to what you'll see with like PGI and Atropa, where both tokens have a very large majority of their supply burned to one another.
Okay, all right. So it's following those same kinds of principles.
Right, and with a set supply and tokenomics, like there's a math behind it. So B2B is just storage for A1A, right? You can't mathematically take the price of B2B underneath A1A because it's backed by A1A. So whatever A1A does, it's the engine that just keeps getting stronger and growing liquidity, and it might go sideways or it might not, right? But it just, whatever it does, B2B does. And then as more people buy B2B, B2B just goes away from A1A, the same way you see Atropa going away from DAI.
I see. So if there's no buy pressure, they'll still keep trickling up, doing their own thing based on all the liquidity pools that they're connected to anyway.
Correct. And if you put up A1A, ultimately pushing up B2B, then all the liquidity pools on B2B arbitrage, then you get a 2% reflection over on that side. So B2B is basically the store value, and it still gets reflections on it.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's really cool. And actually, because I'm not sure if you're seeing my screen or not, Sunny, but I'm also like going through the block explorer just to see for myself and learn for myself as you're explaining, and for people to see as well. So I'm having a look now at the pools there, and the 78% supply is connected to B2B. So I can see what you're saying there now, and it's all these little pieces. It's like, for you, it's probably obviously like very simple, and I've also noticed in the pub you're like almost like frustrated that people don't understand this stuff. But for people like myself, it's like this puzzle that I'm slowly connecting the pieces to. So yeah, again, I really appreciate you coming on to share these kinds of things. So hopefully now that clears things up for what A1A is and B2B. And so do you have like a vision with A1A? Are you trying to take it anywhere in particular? I know like when you first started talking about it, or when I found out that you were the dude behind it, you really didn't care whether people got into it or not, because you were confident that it was just going to do its own thing. Do you have any kind of like future plans for it, or any goals with it?
No, it doesn't need anyone. Nothing's changed there. Like from its launch, from its inception, it's no different than Pulse and PulseX paired together. As long as there's more than one pair paired to it, it'll do its thing forever. So A1A went into B2B. There was a lot of B2B left behind. So B2B morphed into meth lab. Well, it didn't morph into, but it built on top of it the mini Ethereum lab, which is meth lab. And meth lab is the same theory as A1A, except for instead of a 1% reflection, it gets a 1% reward. So if you hold meth, you get rewarded in PRC 20 copied ETH, which is equivalent 1-to-1 for Pulse. So it's basically just kind of a sneaky way to hold a token and get Pulse. And then meth has about 200, maybe 150, 200 liquidity pools intertwined with it, and 10 other tokens that reward things like real wrap Bitcoin, real Ethereum, real DAI, real Sol, real BNB. It just powers that little ecosystem of from Ethereum rewards coins, and those are all the same thing. Those are all backed with B2B and A1A, and then the rest of that right now is moving into Rewarder, and Rewarder will just basically be built on top of all of them and reward 1% Pulse, and it'll be the gateway into an unknown number of other reward coins. It's going to start with 10 and then build out a few more. But ultimately, what you'll end up having is one token that has a 1% from A1A building liquidity with a 2% of a store of value. So you have 3% coming in and 1% going out. And all you have to do is just hold the token, and there'll be about 1,000 pools arbitraging all together.
Wow. Okay. So again, this is the same, like you said, it's the same principles. It doesn't even really need new buyers. It's just by the fact that it's tied to so many liquidity pools, it's going to keep doing its thing and keep growing in value.
Right. In theory, I could do all of this and just hold 99% of the supply and make my own tokens with my own webs and just have that suck out, right, and not let anyone play. But instead, I'll just burn all the money and let everybody play.
So it's really like giving back to the community.
Yeah. I mean, it's there for anyone that wants to support it and understand the math of it, right? And if you really look into the math behind what's going on here on Pulsechain, like this is a great way to learn it and pick and choose where you may want to hold some things that are multipliers on Pulse itself. Like you don't want to hold anything that's going down against Pulse. So it's always very important to check your chart on US dollar value versus wrapped Pulse value if you're playing with Pulse, which I feel most of us are.
Okay, so in that sense, in terms of somebody new that wants to learn, what would you suggest that they do?
Mess up everything.
Mess up everything?
Yep.
Awesome. I've been learning really well then. So
do it all. Do it $1 at a time or 10 cents. You know, do like 1,000 pulse is 50 to 100 pulse for gas, right? So like just push the buttons. Just play with 1,000 pulse. What's that, like a penny? 10 cents? I think it's 10 cents. So like for a quarter you can make an LP with 20 cents in it, right? So for under $1 you can learn some very, very valuable lessons. Or like meth, you can go buy $1 worth of meth, put it in a wallet, and just watch the rewards and be like, oh shit, like I made $1 back in rewards in 6 months, and I got rewarded Pulse, which just did a 10x. So I just 10x'd my initial in rewards, and I still have my initial, which is now at a 10x. Like,
I think, okay, so basically, like, just to summarize that, and this is something that I've definitely been trying to do, but I didn't even really think of going that low, to be honest. I've been sort of putting 20, 40, 50 kind of dollars, but even with $1, and then basically, or like you said, 10 cents, basically what you're suggesting is just explore all these different ecosystems that you've got, create different liquidity pools, and give it a try, and then just see which ones work and try and learn by doing. And then once you see which one works, then you can probably start to like scale into that particular one. Is that what you're suggesting, basically?
yeah, exactly. I mean, if you don't see the actual numbers in front of you, like I have one wallet, and all I do is I it's rare that I do dollar values, right? But I do want to watch dollar values, but I don't like to count them. So whenever I start a new LP, might be big or small or whatever, I'll then start one with that's worth $100 at the time I start it, and then send it to that wallet, right? So that when I go to DBank and I pull it up later, I just see like 20 different LPs that are worth anywhere from $75 to 200, and I get an idea of how they're performing in dollar value, right? Because I generally just do token count. So
Okay. And yeah, obviously, do you do it all through PulseX?
yeah, I feel like that's what it's meant to be. That's what we can host on our own and do safely.
Okay, yeah, and I think I've definitely learned from that process as well. And I think at one point as well, you suggested, it probably still is pinned in Sunny's Pub, one of the best ways to learn is to pair, like, I think it was Pulse and wrapped ETH. Sorry, not wrapped ETH, Pulse and the forked ETH, and basically, because they're one to one, basically create a pool between those two, and then just watch it for a month or two and see how the math works, see how it ticks over, and that's something that that was one that I've done. I've done a few little stable coins, a few other ones, just to try and experiment, and I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to, on reflection, looking back and 2 months or 3 months of these liquidity pools, this is the kind of thing that works. This one doesn't work, and the reason why is because of X, Y, and Z. And this one works, and the reason why is because of A, B, and C. So I suppose in your mind, you would have like a really clear idea on the types of liquidity pools that do work, or do you feel like you're still learning as well?
I've got a pretty good idea now. Just like kind of what you were just saying, but I still have a whole bunch of $1 LP pairs that I made probably 6 months ago. Dude, like DAI to USDC, USDC to USDT, USDT to DAI, and just a whole bunch of them, all with the closest I could get to $2, right? A dollar on both sides. Might be 99 cents and $1.01, but mathematically, a dollar on both sides, $2. And I can go back and look at that in a year and say, okay, there's now a $1.05 in there, so that made 5% a year on the way up on a bullish run or what. Like I have a point in time, a frame of mind I can look back to, and have real world experience and knowledge on how much that pool actually made percentage wise APR.
And do you look at these as something that, like, okay, so what's your philosophy around liquidity pools? Do you look at it like once you create it, you're just going to leave it there forever, and then you're just basically protecting that liquidity pool forever, and only just maybe taking out a little bit at increments, or whenever the price performance is really good? Like, what's your overall philosophy around liquidity providing?
At the moment, when I put something in, I'm just like, all right, whatever I put into this is just gone. Like, I think of it as something I don't get back. And then when I come back later in a year or two, or whenever I feel like it's the top and I need to pull something out, then I'll go look and I'll see what I put in versus what it's made. And then if I decide to take out, like, then I'll take out off the top, right? And try and always leave that initial percentage in, because like, just the way exponential growth works like this, right? Like, it's a snowball. The snowball just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just literally never stops getting bigger. It might slow down on the growth, right? Because when it's really small and your snowball does 2, 3, 4x the size, it does that really fast, right? But once your snowball's the size of a house, it takes that much snow to do another 2x. But if you go back and look at some of the original pairings between like A1A and USDT, and I even think DAI. I think there's 6 pools there that all started with $10 in Pulse, or well, $10 worth of, the stable coin, like $10 worth of USDC with 50,000 A1A, which was $10 at launch, $500 market cap. Those $10 burnt liquidity pools, depending on where we're at, but like when we were at 60 cents, those were $6,000 a piece. And there's one V1 and one V2, so you're looking at $12,000 from $10.
Wow.
So like, if you do the math and you see where money comes in from and how to do it, if you do it really, really early, you can actually leverage. You can buy more tokens that are in supply and actually leverage your LP play. And if you're on a token that's like a PRC20 or from ETH, like something that's going to mint or something that hasn't been in LP before, you basically just get impermanent gains. People aren't going to like that, but whatever.
Impermanent gains. I like that. I like that. I mean,
but you can leverage your liquidity play early on and actually not have any fear of it getting liquidated, quote unquote. Like, so you can take a very, very small tiny LP with pennies and make it worth $1 or $2, and if you 10 times its LP, or like if you 10x leveraged it, like you buy more tokens that are in it, add those to LP, buy them again, add those to LP, buy those again, add them to LP on these little tiny ones, like you'll see insane growth. Like you won't even understand why the math is there, but it's there.
Okay. So just to use like very basic examples. So let's say maybe a month ago or before Pulsechain really took off. So let's say you had Pulsechain and, for example, PDI. So even before PDI took off. So you kind of created this little tiny pool at the bottom, and now the price is gone up, whatever it is, 3 to 5x. And then you're saying you would just keep buying those tokens again and re-adding into that liquidity pool and just keep growing the pool like that.
Yeah, basically, if there's not enough there for what you can possibly get, right? If there's only so many in the pool, and a lot of these little tiny ones, the PRC20 copies, a lot of people haven't really brought life to, and those are the ones that you plug in with a little bit of pulse. Like if you do $10 in pulse, $10 in stablecoin, and $10 in like, if you do $10 in A1A, A1A will give you that volume plus the 1%. If you do $10 in a Tropa or Teddy Bear, you get a little more volume. You don't grab the extra 1%, but you just have to plug it into something with massive volume and some volatility, right? And obviously some liquidity behind it too. If you take those three things and put them together, then you'll start a chart. You'll make it move. Tornado Cash, the PRC20 copy, is an example of that. Wrap XRP, go look at Dogecoin. I'm pretty sure the A1A LP is the top holder outside of the Uniswap one that was copied over. And those numbers just keep growing and growing and growing. It just keeps adding more power.
So the whole philosophy really around liquidity providing for you is to support the growth of the whole entire blockchain. Would that be a way of understanding it?
100%. That's what A1A, B2B, mETH, and Rewarder are all just made to give life to these tiny little charts, because you can't onboard people with a free airdrop if they don't have somewhere to come dump Bitcoins.
I love it.
And
Yeah.
most people don't understand that, and they think that that's silly, but like, the world's largest free airdrop isn't for the people that got the coins, it's for the people that are in liquidity, because when they dump those coins, they put them in your liquidity, and then they're worth your money. So like, your dollar price might go down 50% or even 90%, but if you put 100 tokens in there and now you've got 100 million tokens, who cares?
Because over time, those 100 million tokens will still tick along just by virtue of all their connections in liquidity.
So think about price impact, right? If you put 100 tokens with some pulse into a pool, and someone has 1 million tokens of some, let's say it was Pepe before it ever started, right? And that person's like, yo, I'd rather have this 50 pulse that this guy put in here. So he dumps his 1 million Pepe for your 50 pulse, right? So now you have 1,100,000 Pepe in there worth maybe 10 pulse, right? So someone else can come by, they're going to price impact the fuck out of it and say, oh, I'll give you 50 pulse. I want most of these, right? So now there's, let's say they put 200 pulse in there. So now there's 200 pulse, and their price impact was so big they didn't get all the tokens. Now maybe you have 200 pulse and 1 million tokens, right? And he bought the 100 million out. You're 4x on your pulse, and still 10,000x on your other side.
I see what you're saying now. And then, of course, if there ends up just being some kind of future market on it and people start getting attracted to it, then it's just upward winning, really.
It doesn't matter if they get attracted to it or not. If you pair it with Pulse, when Pulse does X's, it does X's, and they cannot ignore that.
Okay, I gotcha. Okay. So, oh man, yeah, it's really like I know even with like bridging over from Ethereum. So that's something that I tried to. I must admit I haven't really looked into it too much. I just literally started it and I tried to understand how to go about it. But like Gala, for example, I brought over Gala from ETH because I really wanted to. That was one of the visions of Richard Hart as well. So I wanted to like, okay, I want to learn about this because that's going to support this blockchain. So, and it really seems like what you're doing with the mini tokens is really trying to kind of bring that to fruition as well. Like I know with the mini wrapped Bitcoin, you're getting it in the actual wrapped Bitcoin, not the copy, the PRC20 copy. Is that correct? And so you're trying to entice people to get into providing liquidity with basically maybe if I'm getting the from ETH wrapped Bitcoin, and then I could maybe purchase some copied wrapped Bitcoin and then maybe provide some liquidity in that. Is that kind of one of the objectives you feel as well with the mini ecosystem?
It just puts buy pressure on it, right? Because it's buying it through arbitrage of other things, which makes the chart always live, which rewards holder. Obviously, anyone that wants to support any particular token that it may reflect or reward rather, then they can obviously choose to do that. But
it's more just about giving it life.
For the most part, yeah. It's and you have to support some of the better tokens to support some of the smaller ones, and it's really just it's a huge liquidity tree, and it's because A1A is tied in so deep, it can handle and will continuously grow quite a bit because it's just taking that 1% out of all of those little pools that's burnt and into. So yeah, it's just going to keep going. And then like when you brought over you're from Ethereum, there's a lot of different ways of doing that as well. You kind of just gotta, the more pools you make, the more volume that it's going to have, and the more of a chart it's going to have. And that basically just means you're going to make more of it in LP. Whether or not they ever bridge more over or not, you'll actually just be getting more and more of it back into your LP, plus whatever you pair it with. So like, I mean, wrap BTC from Ethereum is and DAI, right? They're just PRC20 copies. So it's our biggest example of that, right? And then Link is doing very well over here. I mean, Paxos Gold is okay. So Paxos Gold, PaxG, is the equivalent of gold. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's worth like $2,000 a coin. And when the chain first started, I started doing liquidities. I saw it here, and it was $2 a pop. And I was like, yeah, let me buy a couple of these. So I bought some, and there wasn't very many available for purchase, right? So this is where I actually figured out how I could leverage the LP position, right? So that, like, if it's only like, I mean, literally there might have been like 5 or 10 of them, I think, in supply. I don't know, maybe 50. I don't know. It wasn't that many. I was buying them out of V1 so that I could add to V2, and then I eventually bought so many out of V1 that I made V2 bigger, right? So I had the dominant pool. So whatever is the biggest LP is going to be the dominant pool, and the secondary one gets the first set of arbitrage, third one gets the third set of arbitrage, and so on. So PaxG, I started both LPs on Pulse, and then I don't know what I tied it into, just other things, right? I knew USDP, which is Pax dollar, it's their stable coin. I knew that the ETH contracts over there would still work together over here. So I took a chance to put them together. And then USDP paired DAI. So when DAI took off, USDP takes off, which made PaxG take off. I mean, PaxG hit like $100. But you can go look at the PaxG, and then I started pairing that with the PaxG from Ethereum pools. And I mean, collectively, from a couple of $100, like there's several $1,000s there in liquidity.
Man, so do you feel like it's still these kinds of opportunities? There's still many of these kinds of opportunities that are existing in Pulsechain, or do you feel like all those like really unique and quality opportunities are kind of all taken up so far? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, just look, this PAX G Pulse pool is worth like, I mean, there's 7K in liquidity. I don't know if anyone else is in it or not, but I mean, I might have put a couple of $100 into that thing, and now it's worth 7K.
Mm.
Remind me of that last question again.
Do you feel like these opportunities, basically what you've done with PAX G, do you think that's an opportunity that is going to be continuously there with any new tokens that get revealed, or do you feel like, okay, now we're several months into Pulsechain, that those opportunities are probably gone for people? What's your thoughts around that?
I have a list of probably 50 coins that aren't tapped that I feel. So when I look at coins, right, if there's not enough, if the Ethereum side doesn't have any liquidity, then I don't want to start the pump over here, because that's all I'm trying to do is just like create this pump that just siphons their liquidity over here. And that's really all any of this is. So I'll go look at coins on Ethereum that have copies here that have at least like 500K in lick. If I think it's decent, right? Otherwise, if it doesn't have a million in lick, like I don't even want to start the pump. But I have a list of about 50 of them that I'd be surprised if any of them has $1 in liquidity here.
Okay. All right. Okay. Someone is. What do you like for time, by the way, Sonny? I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know that someone's saying that you're very busy, so I'm just conscious of your time. So.
I'm hanging out, man. No worries.
Okay. Cool. Sweet. So you also had. So okay, we've covered A1A, B2B. Anything else that you want to say about A1A and B2B?
I mean, between those two tokens, I can literally explain relative connection between any two tokens in crypto, because it's all any of it is. It's token A and token B, and then what percentage is where of both supplies, how they're bonded, and what they're bonded to. So like getting to know A1A and B2B and how they work and why the liquidities are paired the way they are, and how that is very similar to PDI and Atropa. It's really, really educational for people. And for anyone or any project that might be telling you, like, we understand what Atropa did and we redid it and all this stuff, I don't want to talk down on anybody. I'm not going to put any names out there, but I honestly don't know anyone else that has actually got it right and really pulled off the PRC20s, because the key of this game early on was those PRC20s were not in liquidity pools. Just like Pulse, right? Like Pulse was not in liquidity pools. There's still tons of it that's never been in a liquidity pool. So like when you don't buy something out of a liquidity pool, when you sell it into it, doesn't just bring it back to where it was, right? So like it's this whole thing we were just talking about. If you put 100 tokens in and someone jumps 100 million and someone else buys the other side, like you now have, 50x the size of your LP. Even if the price went down, it doesn't matter because you have so much more of it. And yeah, it's there. I mean, it's the power of Pulsechain. You don't ever have to trade again if you can figure out the liquidity here.
I heard Too Spooky from the Tang Gang referring to providing liquidity as like treating it like real estate. So with real estate, okay, yes, you're going to get people who flip with real estate, but basically treating your liquidity pools like real estate that you just earn yield off for perpetually, forever, really. And it looks like that's also your perspective as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. If you put Pulse and Pulse X into a pair together, right? Let's just like, we could sit here and go back and forth all day. Which one's going to do better? Is Pulse going to do the 10x? Is Pulse X going to do the 10x? Pulse X, like, doesn't matter. Both great coins paired together by liquidity anyway. So if you pair the two and you put that in V2 and you're just making the 0.25%, you're still sitting there making that 0.25%, right? Even if you put it in V1 and you take the APR for ink, you're still making that APR from ink. And then outside of that, what most people never see or actually do the math on is that all the Pulse and Pulsex that people got from Sacrifice that they've never sold, as they sell it, it goes into liquidity. And that just makes our liquidity thicker and thicker and thicker. It doesn't move the price so much. And that's the whole, like, it's a huge trick. We go sideways forever, but if you're in LP, just getting more and more and more and more and more coins, making the LP fatter, you're still making way more money than just holding your coins.
True. And this is actually, it was an experiment for me when I just started kind of developing an interest. So back in June, I created a Pulsex and Pulsechain. At the time, I was a massive noob, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm by any means an expert. I still feel I always try to maintain the mindset of like continuous learning. But I just put a little bit into a Pulsex and Pulsechain liquidity pool just to kind of see what would happen. And basically, I don't know anyone that can see the screen here. So this blue line was where I entered the liquidity pool, and the price now has moved back to here. And what I wanted to do with like a third of my bag was to be like a participant of the ecosystem. And that means being a liquidity provider. And it's been awesome to see that the price moves all the way down here and it comes all the way back. And you can actually see, I can see now I think it was like plus 10% or thereabouts on both my Pulsechain and my Pulsex at certain points when the position was here, like the whole fear around impermanent loss and something that you refer to as impermanent gains, which I love because it's like it really just flips that narrative on its head, is really like, if I'm never planning on selling those tokens, I can just leave it in here forever. And the chart between, or the ratio between Pulsechain and Pulsex can swing up and down, and I can just keep skimming off the top. And that really seems to me like part of the philosophy but behind liquidity providing that I really love, because it gives you that long-term mindset as well that Richard Hart's really tried to teach us. But it feels like there's still a lot of we talk about delayed gratification, but there's still a lot of like pump and dump mentality and get in, extract as much out of everybody else that I can. And I hate that concept. And so that's something that I've really loved about learning about liquidity providing, is that you don't have to destroy the price, and you can support the ecosystem, and you can make the ecosystem grow. And the more people that just plug into this way of thinking, like everybody can start to win. Is that how you also feel about liquidity providing?
Yeah, it gets rid of this peer versus peer bullshit and fighting and arguing, and just like the great thing about it, right? So like when you enter an LP position, and this is why I don't know if you've heard me say or not, but like when people talk about their percentage and their size in an LP, they think about it the same way that they do as like a normal token, but it's not that same percentage, right? And if you do it in LP, it's you're in a dick swinging contest for no reason. Like if you start an LP, you own 100% of the LP. Let's say there's one token. Somebody else then comes in and adds the same amount as you, they'll get a half a token or a token. I forget which way the math works. It's the same amount. But so now they've minted a token and you now have 50%. So it looks like your percentage went down, and people are like, oh no, my percentage went down, blah, blah, blah. I'm not getting as much. But the reality is there's now twice as much money in that pool because someone else joined it. So the pool itself is now going to make twice as much money because it can do that much more arbitrage, right? Before it might have only done $10 at a time in arbitrage. Now it can do 20. So when we get together and, if you start a pool and you're at 100% and you come back a week later or a month later or whatever, and you're down to 10%, that's actually really, really good. It means you're in a good pool that people want to support, and it has way more volume now because there's 10 times the amount of money than when you were in there alone.
So it really kind of shatters down, it breaks down that mindset of just me, and I just want to win for myself. In actuality, you think like, oh, I'm losing now because I don't have the pool, but other people coming into there is like, yeah, we're working together on a team now, and we're actually together making this better, and it works out better for all of us, pretty much.
Right. And, the flip side is, let's say you got 50% of the pool, and then you come back and you look, and all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I got 75% of the pool. It means somebody left your pool and you now have more of it. And depending on the pool, right, if you have a good pool that's growing well, awesome. You're getting a fatter piece of the whole pie, even if you're making a little bit less. But like, it's just with LPs, when you go into and out of an LP, you are either burning or minting a token. So if you pay attention to your percentages, just know that they're kind of flipped upside down backwards to what you may be used to or think it is.
Okay. All right. I love it. So basically then one of the key points you were saying is if people really want to learn about this, really study what's happening in B2B and A1A, and the way that people can study that is to go into the block explorer, use the contract addresses, see what kind of pools that they're connected to. Is that how you would recommend people study that, and obviously create some pools as well with those and just kind of observe?
Yeah, that's a great way to do it. Pull it up in Dex Screener and put the contract address, and look at all the pools or Dex tools, and see how many different pools it has and what kind of volume each one does, and start to notice that if this pool has 20,000, the next one has 15, the next one has 10, you'll see the volume on it might be 1,500, 250, and it's I refer to it often as like a waterfall of LP, but that's just how arbitrage works. It goes in from the pool that gets bought with too much price impact or sold with too much price impact. Arbitrages into the next thickest pool, into the next thickest pool, and the next thickest pool. So like when you're watching Teddy and you see those guys buying with 100 million pulse, and then there's 50 cells behind it, you'll see they actually go in order from like 50 million pulse to 25 million pulse to 12.5 million to 6. That's because they're able to take half as much each time out of the next pool based on its liquidity and price impact.
I see. Okay. All right. So it's something that really is going to take some time for people to learn and wrap their head around, but it's really about doing and observing.
You have to want to learn it. Most people will never understand this stuff. They'll just believe there's magic pots.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's why for me it's something that I really do want to learn from the perspective again of like I want to. I'm sick of the dog eat dog world. I'm sick of the like, only the strongest survive, and this old world thinking of like competitiveness and just trample over everybody else to get over the top. And it's like cryptocurrency to me seemed like it presented a way out of that world. And then when I started really thinking about liquidity providing, it's like, oh, hang on a minute, this is something where we can win together. And it has been like, and it's been extremely frustrating because it's like I'm sort of probably not naturally good at learning these types of things, but it's been very rewarding as well. Just watching, observing, creating different things, listening as much as I can, and talking to people like yourself. And you've been like extremely generous with your time as well in Sunny's pub. So I definitely appreciate it. And I know that there's a lot of people who have a lot of love for you because you've taught everyone, like these kinds of people, everything that they know about liquidity providing. So I'm sure that they all want to give thanks to you in the same way that I do. Okay, so on that, is there anything else more that you want to say about the mini ecosystem before we move on to something else after that?
No, I mean, early on when I had a piece of paper and I sketched out what A1A turned into, I was sitting there and I was watching these arbitrage bots, right? And I'm like, all right, I'm in an LP, getting my 0.25%. And this arbitrage bot, he's leaving a 0.25% in 2 LPs because he bought and he sold, right? He don't give a fuck. So I was like, I'm getting a 0.5% anyway. Like, how can I just snag the full 1%, right? So that's how A1A came into mind. I was like, if I put a 1% reflection tax, he's still going to go through there. He don't care, right? As long as he makes one pulse, he'll spend whatever it takes to get through there. So the LP then gets the 0.5%, the quarter, and then anything touching A1A gets the 1% boost. And if you hold it long enough, or there's a dead wall, or there's whatever, it shorts itself out of supply, right? So like that was how A1A came to be. And then when you get into the mini Ethereum lab and the M tokens, it's that same exact thing. It's these guys are going to arbitrage it no matter what. How do I take advantage of it? And this one, instead of just doing a reflection, you can direct it into what you want, right? So like the new one that's coming out that I'll probably hit launch on after this whole thing once I have a little more focus. But like, there's PDI rewards, USDP, USDC. I made a C3C, which is basically just rewarding A1A and B2B LP. There's an ink one. There's one called Miner, which is like a Bitcoin miner. It rewards a PRC20 copy Bitcoin. And then there's Digger, which is the gold digger, and it rewards that PAX G copy we were talking about. So, there's, if you like ink, you can throw a little bit of this in ink and you can watch the chart. The chart will basically just go up against Pulse. So you're holding an asset going up against Pulse that's rewarding you and paying you something else for holding it. The more people that hold, the more liquidity that's actually there, the more dollar amount that can go through arbitrage. Like PLS Xmas is showing this right now, right? Like people were getting like a penny a transaction for the longest time, and now it squeezed, it shot up to 6 cents, 7 cents, and everyone's getting like 50 cents a transaction. And it's like, holy shit, like when that goes up the next phase and it's worth a quarter, that means everyone's gonna be getting like $2 a transaction. Like it's an exponential growth that, again, if everyone could just hold and not sell, they would reap the benefits on it. And all of these that reward coins, like A1A, you get reflections. Eventually you have to sell the reflections, right? This, you're getting a reward, and you're getting a reward on a token that has liquidity, right? Like if you're getting rewarded ink in something or WETH or Pulse, you can go sell a different chart and not hurt the one that you're in.
And I suppose this is also probably why you don't actively actively go out and promote these things, because you really don't want to attract those kind of people that are just going to come and sell the chart on, for example, PLS Xmas. You want people that are just going to just hold and support, and then just not destroy the price, and just everybody wins together. Is that kind of your thinking around it as well?
PLS Xmas was actually kind of interesting. It was a test. I don't like doing anything with the real people's money, right? Like A1A was 5 million Pulse, $500. I just burned it. Like it was just an experiment, right? I don't want to fuck anybody, right? So PLS Xmas, I actually wanted to do one. I needed to test some tokenomics, but I wanted that main pool to be Pulse, and I wanted it to have like 5 or 6 big pools, right? So I think I did 20 people, 1 million Pulse each for like 2% of the supply, something like that, right? Which put most of that into liquidity. But that was definitely like multi-wallet, and just that was 100% people taking advantage of it, right? So like a lot of them probably made a fair amount of money and left, but it also spit out a fair amount of rewards, and everyone that's holding is now, I don't even know how many X's from launch, from 0.2 of a penny to 7 cents or something. So PLS Xmas was kind of an interesting one, but then the meth lab bought up a fair percentage of its supply and put those together in liquidity. And then, all right, so the mini Ethereum lab holds 5-6% of all of the tokens that are rewarded. And as those rewards come in, it just adds in the liquidity and burns liquidity. So it's constantly adding to 10 different liquidity pools, even if it's 50 cents a day or whatever. Like, I mean, some of the pools are kind of small, but
so everything that you're doing really is about kind of layering into this compounding strategy and long-term mindset and working together mindset.
Yeah, pretty much. And you'll see there's 2 wallets on there that are 5%. One of them is Sunny Trees. It's just I'll never take $1 out of it myself, and I'll never sell any of those tokens, but all the rewards will get sold, and then they'll get turned into planting trees to absolve all you guys of your internet usage.
I love that, man. Yeah, I've seen you talk about that a lot, and I just love that. And this to me is like that's the real beauty of what we can do with these kinds of things. You can actually create this kind of infinite supply of money in a way, really, and start putting that into a cause that you're really interested in fixing the world and making these changes in the real world. And that's what crypto should be really about. It shouldn't be about just like, and yeah, if this is what people want to do, not financial advice, all that kind of jargon. I mean, it shouldn't really just be about like taking liquidity from everybody else and then buying a Lambo and a mansion. It's like, what's the point of any of that? It kind of seems like you're on that same wavelength as well.
And that's it. And I mean, ultimately, like most reward coins fail because people buy them, right? This sets up, it has endless arbitrage. And I mean, you can use the word extraction if you want, because that's all this is. It's just automated extraction. And like A1A, it's like, it doesn't matter if you buy it or not, it's going to sit there and make money. If you choose to be part of it, cool. The more people that choose to be part of it, the bigger and stronger it is. Exponentially, the faster it gets to where it's going. When people leave it, it slows down a little bit, and then it just gets right back on par to doing what it does. Like, so as far as bad actors, people can come and go. That's fine. The mini Ethereum lab only had a couple of people that have supported a lot of testing and shit like that, who have never sold any of my tokens. Like, they got a fair market price, like literal launch price for, 1%, 2% of the supply or something that never sell just to get rewards. But other than that, rewarders 100% going to be fair launch. No one's getting any tokens except for that Sunny's Trees wallet, and there's another wallet that's the guy that helped write all these contracts and put everything together. He's the same thing, never sell any of the actual tokens, just the rewards, and he's got plans for his donations as well. So 1% of everything that all these rewards tokens do, not A1A or B2B because they don't reward, but the other ones, 10% of everything there is basically going to get donated to make the world a better place.
I love it. I love it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've really loved Sunny's Pub so much. You were also mentioning C3C. So did you want to mention a little bit more about that? You're going to be layering that into all of this, and you were saying basically it's just going to be utilized to provide more into A1A and B2B.
There won't actually be a token C3C, but what I'll refer to as, or what actually is C3C, is the LP token for A1A and B2B in B2.
All right, gotcha.
So holders that have the C3C token will get their 1% rewarded in the LP token for A1A B2B. So you'll basically be getting into LP with no tax.
Okay.
It's 6% tax to enter that position, right? You have to buy your A1A, you have to buy your B2B, and then you have to put it in LP, and you get taxed when you go in, you get taxed when you come out, and then you get taxed again when you sell. So like an LP position carries like a 12%, I guess. 3333, yeah, 12%.
Okay. Got it. So basically you've got these three separate ecosystems in a way, but they're not really separate. They're all kind of doing similar things. You've got the A1A B2B, then you've got the mini ETH lab set of tokens, the mini tokens, and then Pulse or PLS. It's PLSXM, right? That's the ticker, yeah, with a lowercase m.
Yeah, that's kind of in that little series of tokens, and then Rewarder is the last one that'll come out, and it does the same thing, except it rewards Pulse.
Okay. So there's another one coming up in the future called Rewarder.
Right.
Okay, nice.
And then that'll do Pulse. So basically, Rewarder's Pulse, mETH is lETH, which is just Pulse. And PLSXmas is PLSX, right? So there's your top three. And then there's, I don't know, currently 20 other options for other coins if you wanted to have something else. The way that all of those, if you go look at any of these coins, you can actually look at, if you go look at mETH Lab, you can see how the LPs are positioned. and you can actually look at the market cap and the volume, and you can see that it just flows from the ones that people chose to buy the most of. Like there's two meths, right? There's the mini Ethereum lab, which is mETH, and then there's mETH, which is actual wrapped Ethereum, like real Ethereum rewards. And that one, people they liked that one, right? So they bought that one more, which gave it a little bit more liquidity and higher market cap. So it always now gets the first arbitrage off of the meth. And then after that one, it might go into like the DAI one, and then into whatever the next one is, right? So like no one ever, like if you hold some of those other 10 tokens that are very heavily and in a waterfall paired with meth, as long as the A1A has a chart that's moving, then all of the reward tokens are paying out rewards.
Wow. Okay. And there's a whole ecosystem there. So I was trying to show as well. Where was it in this B2B one? So I'll end up putting the Telegram link in the show notes. But it looks like there's Doge, PaxG, Matic, BNB, Frax, Solana, DAI, Link, BTC. So I think there's probably a couple more, but people can find out in the Telegram.
Those are all real from Ethereum tokens, not the copies.
Right.
In the mini Ethereum lab. Mini Ethereum lab, everything's ETH.
Okay. Mini Ethereum lab, everything is ETH. And then it was just straight up meth that gives you the copy of wrapped ETH, which is essentially Pulsechain.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the one with, well, in the Pulsechain pair, it has less liquidity than the mini ETH lab. But you were saying that one has more liquidity flowing through it, so it gets the first dibs of the flow.
Yeah, most of these, let's see, in the meth lab, most of those main pairings were mini ETH would have started with like 2K there, 500. Between all those pools, there's probably like 20 grand.
So as you're looking now, what are you using to look? Are you using what tool are you using?
I was just looking at my spreadsheet.
Okay.
But like, so a lot of these don't have a lot of wrapped pulse in them, and that's just take your Tropa lessons on liquidity routes. And wrapped pulse is very, very rarely the biggest route in, and anyone that takes that just gets wrecked on impact, and that price impact goes into arbitrage. Yep. So it just pays out rewards, and if they took a 10% price impact, then they're already down 10%, and they just paid out rewards. So like, it's designed that way on purpose.
That actually builds the system up.
Right, and you have to think about how liquidities work, right? So like, if you have $100 in a wrap pulse pool and you have $10,000 in a B2B pool, and you put $100 in the wrap pulse pool, it's just going to arbitrage to the B2B pool, and it might move it up a little 0.1%, even though you did a 2x on your chart, right? And it's going to arbitrage you right back to your entry, and you're just going to get wrecked. So like, that's like I mean, to an extent, there's a trick to it, but like, a lot of the rewarder coins have Pulse in V1 and V2, and then wrapped Ethereum in V1 and V2, right? So you've basically taken one of the same thing and put it into 4 different pools, right? So if you buy it in one pool and you move it up, you have to pull the other 3 pools up with you. So it's going to move that chart up 25% of what it should have, right? You're going to slow that chart down 75% because of your arbitrage to move up 3 other pools. So like, that's like A1A. If you think you're going to whale the price, like if you think you're going to actually move the price of A1A up, you got to you're moving 400 pools with that. So 3 million market cap, there's probably about 350,000 in real liquidity right now. So, you have to put a lot to move that.
But it will move on its own just by arbitraging that's happening between all the pools that it's connected to.
All right. When you buy A1A and put price impact, you're actually just pushing up the 400 pools that it's connected to. And then if you sell it, it's those other 400 pools, they kind of work as like a cushion. But then you could compare A1A to like a Teddy chart or a DAI. Like they're basically all the same chart, except for when you look at A1A, when it goes down way, way softer. And that's because two things. One, when you sell into an LP, you're making more money than when you buy out of an LP, at least from an LP perspective, right? We actually make more money when people sell into the LPs. So there's a bit of a math and a trick there to it.
Okay, so the rate at which it goes up is slightly faster than the rate at which it would go down in compared to if you bought and sold at this. Let's say you bought 1,000 and then you sold 1,000, it would go up slightly more in the buy than it would go down in the sell. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right along the path there, and you can even do it like the difference between selling 1,000 coins and buying 1,000 coins. Like they both have a different price impact, and that's part of a exponential math, right? If you start at 0 and you just move forward, then like that math goes on and on forever. Obviously, with charts like this, the math can come back down to 0 or can stop and do whatever. But like,
Amazing. I mean, all right. So this has been, to be honest, for me, I'm actually probably going to have to go back and listen to it a few times because it's so deep with so much information. Is there anything that you'd like to add or say in general? Oh, actually, before we finish up, I would love to ask your perspective on the Atropa ecosystem. So you're obviously you've modeled this in a way off the Atropa ecosystem. So you're mentioning Atropa and PDAI. So how do you like? Yeah, what's your overall perspective on the Atropa ecosystem and what it's trying to achieve for Pulsechain?
yeah, Atropa's definitely taught me a lot. A1A was launched before I found Atropa. That's kind of why I think when I found Atropa, I was able to see what was going on, right? Because I had kind of already put some theories to work, and then found someone else that had done very similar things, and I was like, whoa, like this is pretty cool. Let me put a couple bucks in here, right? So like, I had never seen this before. It's never been really done before. I don't know that anyone's got bigger balls than 414 to do it the way they're doing it. I think the Atropa ecosystem is amazing. I think 414 is pretty awesome.
What's been your approach with the Atropa ecosystem, like in terms of how you participate in it, how you support it? Have you just kind of bought the core tokens like Atropa, PDAI, and TSFI, etc., or do you basically kind of just every new token that comes out, you just put a little bit in, and just see where it goes from there?
PDAI is not a 414. I don't hold any. Well, I hold 1 million PDAI just because you have to, right?
Yeah, totally.
I don't hold any Atropa.
Wow.
I should, but so you got it. So okay, so for me, like I went through very early with about $150 and tried to put $5 to $10 in like 20 tokens, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a pain in the pub from early September or August of last year that puts the path of all these tokens that I found and all these things that I did, right? So like when I found Atropa, I did 100x on Atropa, right? So then when I realized that the token Atropa was attached to, say TSFI, because it was attached, it also did this crazy 100x, but there was still like 90% liquidity. So I took my 100x from Atropa and then just went over there and just bought TSFI, right? And then, oh shit, well, here goes TSFI doing 100x. So now I'm like, I don't know, what's that, 10,000x from my initial. And, you know, I look at TSFI, I'm like, oh, look, this TSFI thing goes into legal, right? So then I go into legal, and legal does like, so I had done so many X's on those that there was no way. Like I never left a moon bag. I just kept getting deeper and deeper in, and I never really left anything in the front door. I didn't hold any die or Tropa or TSFI, or like I'd made so much off of them and just gone to the next multiplier that I forgot all about them. And now I wish I had tons more of them. But
So you're saying you'd kind of like take out of this pool at a certain point and then put it out of this token and swap it for a different token, and then that token would also go up, and then you'd swap that into another one, then that token would also go up. So you kind of follow the routing. Is that what you're saying?
right. So like the same way that if you push the price of PDI, Atropa just goes up. The same as A1A. If you push A1A up, B2B just has to go up because of liquidity pairing. So like I refer to that kind of as a multiplier, right? So DAI is a multiplier on Pulse, and then Atropa is a multiplier on DAI, and then TSFI is a multiplier on Atropa, and then Legal was a multiplier on TSFI, and then little guy symbol and the one that looks like boots was it's like, so you can be 5 or 6x away from a Pulse multiplier, and if DAI does a 2x, all the other 5 tokens do a 2x. Whereas if Atropa does a 2x, Atropa just goes 2x away from DAI, right? Because everything below it is not multiplying, but everything above it also does a 2x. So like while I was doing 100 x's on these coins, they were also doing x's still on the previous coin. Like the multiplier effect it's ridiculous, right? So like that's literally what meth lab is, right? Like A1A is everything. B2B is the storage of value for A1A, and then all of the liquidity of all the rewards coins are backed by B2B. Not all of it, but the majority.
Okay, so it's following the same kinds of principles, and it's like this hidden wonderland, like all of these little ecosystems, and they feel so underground still. They're still like, it still feels like, I know a lot of people kind of like really fud these ecosystems and talk really negatively to them, and I think that really comes from usually a lack of understanding. I think that's just the nature of the human mind. When we don't actually understand something, we tend towards the negative side of it rather than the positive side of it. So in general, your outlook is just extremely positive with Pulsechain ecosystem and everything that's happening here.
Oh, absolutely.
I love it.
I know that I'd make more money when the price goes down. That includes Pulse. Like I'm not worried about any of it for a minute. Like if you're in the right spots and you've been practicing and are not practicing, but you've been getting some LPs and really like, you write down both sides. I put 1,408.2 on this side and 12,400,003 over here. Like write that down where your entry was. Pay attention to like the price. How much was that worth in dollars? Where was that market cap value on your chart? Like watch that shit and come back in a month and do that with 10 different LPs and just be like, whoa, man, like this one, it's only up like 2%, but this other one's like 6x. Like, what's the good one? Oh, no nukes. So like the 414 coin, no nukes. Man, you throw that in LP with Wrapped Pulse, like I think I put, I don't know, a couple of grand into it when it launched months ago. And it's like, let's say I put in 2 no nukes and 10 million Pulse. It's now like 8 no nukes and 40 million Pulse. Like I'm 4x on both sides, and it's just rolling. And like no nukes itself has done like a 10x or 20. It's like $500 a coin right now. So like,
wow,
it's a lot like a Wrap BTC is to the whole Ethereum world, is how no nukes is to the Atropa ecosystem.
And making more on the downside, that's an interesting concept. And it's also something I remember seeing you say that in the pub, and I was like, how is that possible? But I've started to try and pay attention to it. And again, like because I've had this PulseX and Wrapped Pulse liquidity pool, like, I'm looking at this going, okay, let's wait for let's just say with the Atropa ecosystem, let's wait for it to where I think the potential top could be, create a liquidity pool. And my thesis is that the whole Atropa ecosystem is this kind of like stock market upward forever, like beautiful beautiful ecosystem, same as A1A, same as B2B. And so the kind of liquidity play, which also happens to work in the benefit of the ecosystem, is to kind of create a liquidity pool at a top, and then as it's going down, you're generating you're getting fees on all the sell-offs, and then it's going to come up, and eventually it's going to break that point and go to a new all-time high, and all this way down and up, you were generating fees. And so once it gets back to your point here, I guess you could take it out if you wanted to, and you'll be up a certain amount of percentage. But really, I would then just keep it in there forever. And what you've also done is you've cushioned the downside, so you've become like this participant in the ecosystem, but you've also benefited from it. Is that kind of how you look at the power of like selling being a better thing for liquidity pools?
Yeah, I mean, that's looking into a lot more than just the simple math of how smart math works, right? It's not normal math. When you buy something, you have price impact, right? So you either push the price up or you push the price down. And the way that we determine our value moves. So when you buy, you're pushing the market cap up. That value between liquidity and market cap, there's more fake money there than there is real money, right? So you're creating more fake money when you actually buy it and go up. And when you go down, when you sell it, you're actually taking away that fake market cap, and you're putting more real money into the LP. So you're actually creating more real money by getting rid of that fake money.
Ah, I see. Okay, I never thought of it like that. I tend to overthink these things. You have like a really simple, elegant way of like understanding all these things. It's really quite nice.
And I'm gonna tell you, man, everyone overthinks it. They're all looking for this crazy magical whatever, and it's like, if you can just take everything you know about crypto and forget it, flip it over and look at it from an LP and an actual math perspective, like once you have that awakening, it's just a whole different ballgame. You'll never trade again. Like you literally look at a chart and you're like, it's red, awesome.
Oh man, and that's because there's a lot of stress associated with a downward chart as well. So it's if you can just take that stress out of it and not trade. I mean, this is also one of the ethoses of Richard Hart. So if it's like if you can just be a liquidity provider, live off the yield that you're getting from it, just keep compounding it and growing it and snowballing it, then you're pretty much set for life.
Definitely. And if you can do it right and see it, like, you know, a lot of these positions, so like Teddy, like I've got a good Teddy LP position. It's a printer, like just, you know, it's got to be probably 150, 200% APR. I haven't looked, don't quote me, whatever, but it's just a printer. There's mad volume there. A lot of people, when do you pull it, when do you exit, when do you all this, you know, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna end up with one of two things. Pulse is going to do 1000x, or Teddy's going to do 1000x, or they're both going to do 1000x. Either way, if I take the cumulative value of both of them and I'm making 100% APR, if I'm just doing a 2x on my LP position and then playing that chart together, I don't even care. If they both do a 10x and I did a 2x, that's 20x, right? Like, and I just have more position, and that exponential growth in your LP, like every single trade you're making money, doesn't matter. So obviously if you LP with Luna and that shit goes to zero, right? But if you can find something that, like, I don't care, I'll take the Teddy or I'll take the Pulse. Like, that's why it's one of my bigger positions, because I'm very confident in both of them. I don't care if one does 1000x and the other one does 10. I'm still going to have 2 to 3 to 4 times the position just on my LP, and then I'll take whatever their worth is when I take it to the top.
Oh man, that also was just like another light bulb moment there as well. You're really not thinking about the individual tokens. You're thinking about the totality of the pool and what the pool is generating.
Right. And that's why when you look at Pulse and Pulse X, there's no reason to fight or care. Just combine them into one token and hold that token.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. That's amazing. And so in general, like with liquidity pools, well, I've pretty much learned everything from yourself and the other awesome people in the pub. Low liquidity is good because you're actually getting more fees, but low liquidity and high volume and charts and, well, tokens that are paired together that move generally in the same way together. Is that kind of like how you look at liquidity providing as well?
Yeah, the math to it. I you just got to look at each token, right? Every token A and every token B has 100% of its supply and whatever its tokenomics and available, is. And if both of them are something that you like or think will work together, right, then it's worth it, right? So like MV, the 414 token, like anyone can mint it, and when they mint it, they just sell it. So ultimately, if you put that in LP, whatever you're putting it with, like I have a whole bunch of it paired with Pulse, and I'm just burning my Pulse. Like that's all it's meant to do is just burn anything that just touched. But I'm also keeping my steady flow, my position on what I actually own of MV, right? So if there's only 1 million tokens when I started, and now there's 10 million, and soon there's 100 million. When you bought your million, you way overpaid for the million you can now get when there's 100 million, right? Inflation. So if I owned 1% of the supply in LP and they kept minting and dumping and it just went sideways that whole time, if I started with 100,000 of that 1 million, at the end of this, it might be off by a little bit, but for math's sakes, for the most part, I'm going to have 10 million out of that 100 million. I'm still going to have, or 1%, 10%, I forget what I said. But in LP, when something's minting like that, you're catching it. And if you do it on the other side with something else that's also minting, like like a LUSD or something, LUSD is actually a stable coin if you look at it. It's just stable to gas. It's the same thing MV is, but people haven't figured out that you can buy MV up until they actually start minting and selling it. And you can see it on the chart when they start doing it. So like it's undervalued until it's at the gas price to mint it.
I see. That's another hidden gem, the MV token, and there was a lot of fun around that. We had, I think, Moon King was shilling it on one of his shows, and the price like really dumped, and people. This is one of the reasons I think that was generating some FUD around the Atropa ecosystem, but I think it's because people really didn't understand what it was actually about.
They don't, and this is the learning lesson. Like, MV is one of the most powerful coins in the entire Atropa ecosystem. Like, but most people are like, oh, it just mints and dumps on my head. And it's like, okay, great. Like, yeah, I'll take a token that mints any day of the week. Give it to me. Like, LP me up, and I will catch all of them.
Yeah, right.
Assuming that they have worth one day, right? And we don't necessarily know that these are going to have worth, but I personally think that they're going to be valuable. Not in dollar signs, but in part of the ecosystem. I don't know what it is yet. And
okay.
I could be wrong, but it's done so well. Like the MV token and just how what it is really like. I was super impressed with that, and I put way too much money into it, but I'm gonna keep backing it. And if it does what it thinks I'm gonna do, it does, yeah. It's gonna plant a lot of trees.
Nice. And I want to see it do what it's going to do so we can get more trees in the world then. That's always a beautiful mission.
So if it sticks at gas price, right, like you can buy it up till it's mintable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's that do when gas is $1? 100x on the price, but only if you're an LP.
So sorry,
otherwise it'll get into inflation and it'll take you right out of the game.
So basically, while it's below gas price, it's a good buy.
If you want to swing the chart, yeah. I would never hold this because if there's 10 million tokens now, next week there's going to be 20 million.
Okay. I must admit,
like it just inflates. inflationary. So it's not, you don't ever want to hold anything that's minting and inflationary, especially when anyone can mint it for free and just take the money. But if you look at the MV chart and there isn't someone selling like 1,000 or 900 or 100, like an even number, and just kind of looks like a bot selling every once in a while, like you can buy up until that bot starts running. Once that bot starts running, that's whatever the gas price currently is for those bots to mint and take a profit on what it costs to mint in gas and then sell it in gas.
Okay. I'm going to have to listen to that a few times, I think, your explanation. I'm sure it's very simple, but my mind, I'm going to actually have to look at the chart and see that mechanism before it really clicks in my mind. So, but for you, it's really another hidden gem in the Atropa ecosystem. And it's funny because a lot of people are really like, it's like it's the contrarian thing in the Atropa ecosystem. Everyone thinks it's like the worst thing because of the chart, but in actuality, it's probably one of the most powerful things about the Atropa ecosystem in the way that you're trying to explain it. Is that right?
Take that same exact sentence and apply it to Pulse and PulseX. It's just token A and token B, and it's two liquidity pools that never existed that people dump a bunch of tokens into. So like, when people go to the farm and they look at that V1, they're like, oh, 6% APR, like that sucks. So it's 6% in ink, which is actually pretty good if ink does a 10x and 60%. But because those tokens were never in LPs and you're in the biggest one, when people sell tokens from the airdrop, from sacrifice that they didn't get out of a liquidity pool, they just go into a liquidity pool. It's the most powerful LP in the entire chain.
Yeah, ink. I remember you saying
PulseX.
Pulsex. Okay. You were also talking about
ink is also amazing, right? Because it's backed by Pulse and PulseX. So like, it's I'm not sure. It's probably still over collateralized. It probably has more liquidity than market cap, right? So it's an amazing in LP because there's just always extra liquidity there. I think ink is going to fly here pretty soon, and I think they're also like, ink's going to be the token that they use for onboarding. Like that's the coin that'll be on exchanges and all this shit, because it's not necessarily Richard Hart, right? It's not Pulse or PulseX. It's just this other thing with crazy fat liquidity.
So you think that will attract a lot of people to the ecosystem?
I think it's a trick. And if they do it right, there'll be enough liquidity on the other side that you'll never have to sell Pulse outside of the ecosystem. You can just take your ink to an exchange and put your ink over there.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories around ink. It's really like it's this big mystery, and what's its role in the ecosystem. But just like everything with Richard Hart, I'm sure there's a very deliberate reason why it is the way that it is, and there's some sort of long-term plan that's going to be in the benefit of everybody on Pulsechain. That's what I would expect. I wouldn't expect anything else. It wouldn't just be.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's out there that it's the DAO token for PulseX. Like, so once voting rights come on and there's DAO actions, it'll be done by people that own ink.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
So if you want your project to be on a farm, you're gonna have to buy a shitload of fucking ink, probably burn that shit or something. Who knows? Or vote for it, you know?
Sure. Oh man, the future's really bright, isn't it? It's like, and now we're just back at sacrifice price, and everyone's really quite obsessed with price. But I was certainly content to keep it below. I mean, I had a lot of friends who were accumulating, so but it's about, again, the long term thinking that I think we really need to keep staying focused on and keep developing. And I mean, even myself, I get caught in the short term thinking as well. It's kind of hard. You get distracted by big movements in charts, but really trying to keep adjusting your thinking back to that long term thinking, delayed gratification, supporting the ecosystem, growing together. I think that's what this chain is all about, really.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I don't know if you do it much, but it kind of sounds like you don't. But something I really recommend is, when you're on Dex Screener or Dex Tools or whatever, at the top of your chart, it'll say USD or Wrap Pulse. Click it over Wrap Pulse and look at your price versus Pulse. Because if you're on Pulsechain, unless you're playing these coins with dollar stables, then a lot of these charts are tricks. And even though you might have bought something at a penny and it's at 10 cents, you can go look and be like, oh, well, I spent 1,000,000 pulse on it and it's up here now. But when I go to sell it, I only get 900,000 pulse. And if you switch it and look at the against pulse price, you can see, oh, it's because pulse did 11x and this coin only did 10. So you actually lost pulse, even though it looks like you did a 10x.
Totally. This has been a lesson that I've learned the hard way by basically coming out of a position thinking that I was up because I was looking at the US dollar value, but now I always try and check on the pulse value. It's a pain. I wish Dex Screener you could automatically leave it on there, but you always have to switch it. So, but yes,
That would be nice.
definitely a shift in thinking, and it is like especially with Teddy Bear and PDI, like they broke their all-time highs in US dollar value, but still it's still good value in terms of the Pulsechain value. They haven't broken its all-time high yet, and that's exactly what you want to see.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of price movement out there. I know like A1A, if you look at its versus pulse price versus its dollar price, there's a lot more dollar action, but obviously pulse has been moving. But what you notice with A1A is it's going steady sideways. And if you look at that chart and you think about, okay, pulse has actually been going it was sideways forever, and then it's been going up for a while. And where it goes up, it moves up a little bit, but it kind of just doesn't come back down. Like A1A doesn't have the downs necessarily that like PDI and Teddy have. It doesn't go that deep. It just kind of like sits there equal to pulse and then bumps up and comes back to equal to pulse and bumps up. And now it's on its break again to go up against pulse. So like it's a good versus pulse chart because it holds its value against pulse. And that's all you want, is something that at least holds its value and then hopefully goes
That's
up.
a really good point, actually. That's a really good point. And yeah, you're earning tokens on it just by holding it as well. That's the beauty of it.
Right. So A1A, as long as you're one to, if you put 1,000,000 pulse in and later, you get 100 tokens and later you can go sell your 99 tokens because you're taxed for, the same amount, and then you have a few extra tokens, then it works, right? Like then as people buy it or it gets any type of buy pressure, which once Rewarder launches, you'll see that last pump on A1A was actually from mETH. Right, mETH pumped B2B, which pumped A1A. That's the last takeoff there where it did a 3x. And then it's chilling, doing this thing out, and then Rewarder's about to be plugged into it. And then that's all buy pressure that just brings up the entire ecosystem because it's all one big connection. So I imagine Rewarder might push A1A to ATH. And then, I don't know. If it sells somewhere around like 50 cents right now, I think it go 50 cents sideways for a while. And then actually just start taking off.
I see. Okay. So now you're talking in the dollar value. I see. So from the bottom to the top.
Right. What it'll do too is as it like A1A's market cap being at about 3 million, it's got that much power, and with that much power, its arbitrage gets slightly bigger, right? So when it's at 6 million, it's going to do twice the amount of volume as it's doing right now without again anyone doing anything. So it's just it's a big snowball just slowly rolling, slowly growing. It's 1% on every buy, and because Rewarder and mETH Lab, because all of that liquidity is B2B. When you buy that from anywhere, you either buy B2B to buy it, or you go in through the pulse pools, and the pulse pools are all small, so you take the hit on the price impact and send that much more rewards out to the people holding.
So it's beautiful. It's just like this gigantic team player that's part of the Pulsechain ecosystem, and it's working with and supporting and helping it grow.
Yeah, definitely. PLS Pup is another guy's coin it's the same thing as A1A. He's a little bit smaller as far as just starting and doing the things, but like he understood what I was doing, and in doing that, one of his largest pools is A1A. He's actually become a very large A1A pool. So in learning the lesson, he attached his token so big to A1A that he couldn't like he couldn't get left behind if his token didn't do anything. But then he's also done some really good pairs and done some other things that his token is now also doing really well, and it's pulling up A1A, that little bit down in the corner. So like, two tokens, they can really work together, and then you've got two of the same thing with the 1% and that LP building, and both of them just kind of slowly sitting there getting stronger. And he was saying it's like an ETF, right? Like if you hold this token, you basically just hold the accumulation of the 400 tokens it touches and get a little tiny bit in rewards for holding it.
It's like this is well, I'm not sure if it's a frustrating thing or not, but I think almost people are too obsessed with like Pulsechain's growth in price, but there's all this other stuff that's happening on the chain that I don't see this happening anywhere else on any other blockchain. I mean, I'm not saying that I look into every single blockchain and know the ins and outs of every single one, but this kind of like collaborative, collective consciousness of like, okay, how can we actually help the whole blockchain, not just create a token where I can chuck it in there and take as much value out of that blockchain as I possibly can. There's all these things that are happening below the surface, but they're right there in front of everybody's face. But we're so focused on just the Pulsechain's price that we're not seeing all these magical things. Is that how you feel as well?
I mean, if I hadn't waited 2 years for those tokens, I probably would have sold them at launch too. Like, but we were stuck there with no liquidity, and I'm a shitcoin player, so I started playing fucking shitcoins. Me and Supernova over here in the pub just swinging Wrap BTC when it was $5, and I got kicked out of the Pulsechain voice chat because they thought I was trying to shill the Wrap BTC copy. Good old times. But yeah, just having those 4 or 5 days in the darkness with no price and just messing around a little bit with LPs, right? Because like there was nothing really to do, and I never really made an LP, but here it is for at launch, like 5 Pulse, I can make an LP. So we messed around a few of those. And then as soon as the bridge came over, me and Supernova in the pub again, we saw that Ethereum had bridged over, but it was so weak on liquidity, like $2,500. And people were bridging it in and selling it for Pulse so fast, it was just dumping the price. And ETH was at real ETH was at like $600. So both of us bought some and paired it with Pulse. And then after that, they opened the farms. We were able to throw in the farm, but we got into the Wrap Ethereum Pulse pool for $600 ETH when there was 3K in it, and held that position for about a week, and then looked at the APR, and the APR was going down so much. I was like, oh, I can make more than this swinging, so I sold it. Now I look back and I'm just like, holy shit, that's gonna be one of the biggest LPs ever on this chain that I had a percentage of for a price that no one will ever enter again, and I pulled it. I mean, I made great money on it either way, but I should have left that one forever. But doing it, I learned a little bit about oh, okay, I see how even in V1 it was making me all this money because people were just minting ETH out of thin air and dumping it, and then people were taking this Pulse out of thin air and dumping it, and the LP was just so thick so fast. And I mean, it was 2x on the tokens in a week or two. It was just crazy.
So many things you never even hear about. I've never even heard of those sorts of stories. So
yeah, I mean, if you think about an APR, when there was $10,000 in the liquidity pool in Ethereum when they first opened the bridge, and people were going both ways as fast as possible. Imagine there's $10,000 in there and there's $10 million in volume. That's $22,000 to the LP providers. There's only 10 grand in there, right? So those guys 3x to their position on that kind of volume, right? Now there's $1 million and it's spread out, and there's only $1 million in volume, right? So it's we're on the other side of that, but and more people have joined, so it's thicker, it's more stable. That's how shit works, right? That's why USDL now, you'll notice, is not stable anymore. It's because they pulled that 42-day farm. And we had millions and millions of dollars in liquidity. They pulled that farm. Everyone pulled their liquidity. Everyone got out. Everyone's gone. Dude, there's 600K in the USDL stable pool now. There's not a whole lot in the chart. And I own a fat chunk of that. And the volume over there on a stable coin that's not stable and has low lick, it is great.
Man, there's a lot of alpha in this particular stream. I think, is there anything else? But, well, there's two things. First, is there anything else that you want to kind of add? And second, is there any? I know obviously one of the purposes of this stream for me was to kind of give back something to you as well. And I know that you always answer the same questions again and again. So is there anything that you kind of want to, those same questions that you find yourself answering, do you want to like address them here that people can actually come here and like get a sample of, okay, this is actually what Sonny's talking about? Is there anything that you want to say in that regard?
I mean, people just you might hear me say it, but like you got to treat this like a video game, and you got to get in and learn how to put the game in the console and or turn it on or press the buttons. What buttons where? How do I press start? How do I press add LP? How do I take my LP out? Like if you think something's too hard or you're having trouble understanding it, take the $1 or the 1,000 pulse, take nothing and just go through the experience and play the video game, because you're never going to get to level 2 if you're not playing level 1.
I love that. Yeah, that's I mean, that summarizes learning, doesn't it? It's like you learn by doing, and you got to, I think a lot of people just kind of expect to jump straight into the deep end, and they haven't even learned how to swim yet. They want like, oh, what's the ultimate liquidity pool? But they haven't even learned how to swim. And I think one of the beautiful things about Pulsechain is you can actually learn because it's so cheap with the gas. I remember when I first got into learning about liquidity providing was in Ethereum, and I tried it, and it sucked because the gas fees were so high, and you couldn't really run any little experiments, and you couldn't really do any learning.
And if you wanted to start your own pool, you were launching a contract, and that was like 0.2 ETH back in the day, 0.3. Like, get out of here.
Really?
I have. Yeah, if you're the first one to start a pool, you're actually launching a contract. So it's whatever contract fees are. It used to be like $300 to $500 launching contract over there, and then just an add to LP was like $40. You know, I think now it's they're about 10. I have a pool I have one pool on Ethereum. It's the wrapped pulse pool, and that shouldn't exist. But if you remember at launch when they made the bridge, when they bridged over, they got wrapped pulse, right? So they had no gas because you need pulse. So people had, I think they started with pulse over here and they bridged it out. And then when people bought that and bridged back in, they were getting wrapped pulse, right? So then they had to redo it and make another one that sent pulse and regular pulse, not wrapped. And when they did that, it became a different from Pulsechain on Ethereum. So there's 2 wrapped pulses out there. So I have those hooked up in an LP that is just, I mean, it's an absolute printer because one, it's on ETH. So anyone that even tries to buy it, like there's front runners, there's art bots, like every opportunity there is for anyone to hit this pool, they hit it. And it's just like, it's on a 1% pool, a 1% range, and it's a 1-to-1 because it's pulse to pulse. Like it can only get so far and it's just going to come right back to where it goes. But absolute printer.
That's on the Ethereum side?
Yeah, on Uniswap.
That might be something that I'm going to have to look into as well.
So you have to take a hit on price impact to enter, because you can no longer, when you bridge now, it's just 1 token, right? So you can't get the other ones. The other one's kind of like this ghost pulse at this moment, like. But if you go over there and find both of the pulse addresses, you can take the one that you can bridge out, and then buy the other one, and then add those, right? So you're going to take a price impact hit, you're going to take a gas hit, you're going to take a LP add hit, like you're going to take all these hits without a doubt. But I think ultimately it doesn't take that long to get those hits back. Like,
especially because that can be a direct avenue for people to actually come into Pulsechain. They'll buy it on the ETH side and then bridge it over.
Oh yeah, a lot of people do. A lot of people don't want to know how to get over here, but they just want to hold some pulse. And this is just an arbitrage with a pulse pool. So the price basically always has to be the same. And this one has lower liquidity because it is this rare contract address that, you know, I actually fucked up. So like a long time ago, I had 100 million and 100 million. I had 200 million in there, and it wasn't doing a lot of volume on the east side because there wasn't really a big pool. So people weren't really buying it over there. And I was like, oh, this kind of sucks. I'm just going to pull it out and bring it back over to this side and make a pWETH ETH or a pWETH pulse pool, which I mean, literally that does, you know, it might do a 0.5% or 1% APR until WETH gets lit up a little bit more and does some volume, which I'm also trying to build. That's why I do a lot of things with Wrap Ethereum, pWETH anyway. But yeah, so when I did that, the 100 million of the one that you can't get anymore, I sent to the bridge, and those are now gone. So I can't get it back out. So now I whenever I get into profit on some swings, I'll send out like 10 million, buy 5 million of the other one. Actually, you got to get like 6, so you might get 5-ish of the other one, and then when you pair, you threw the pair off, so you have to, it's 5 to 4 or whatever. But yeah, you take a hit, but as an overall lifelong printer, like I mean, I'd say I'm probably getting like a 0.5% a day.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's really good. That's really good. And it's compounding.
So I have to go over there and auto compound it because it's a Uniswap V2. But like that's kind of how I can look and see like, okay, if I go over there once a day, I usually do it about once a week now, but like
okay,
on average, if it's like I think I have like 75 million in the pool and it makes 300,000-ish a day. So like every time that gets to a total of over 1 million, then I'll be like, all right, it's worth $150. I can spend $25 to pull it out and put it right. Like it's such a loss on that getting its money back, but it's like if I don't put it in there and start it getting its money back, then it just you know. So definitely taking a hit on the compounding gas fees, but I try and catch when they're low.
And again, that's the beauty of Pulsechain, PulseX. It does auto compound. You don't have to do any of that, which is really nice as well.
That's what's amazing about over here is like, you know, if you're in a pool that's doing like a, you know, if you go look on Pulsex or the info and it says your pool is doing 100% APR, well, the 100% APR is actually compounding auto, right? That's just what it makes based on this amount of volume for this time, right? But if you put $100 in there and it made $3, well, next week when you do that, it's on $103, not on 100, right? And the next one's on 106. So it's like you're gonna make that extra nickel and then the extra 10 cents. And the Teddy one, man, Teddy is just a beast in LP.
Yeah, I've noticed that too.
I've been in that position maybe 6 months, and it's probably like the position itself is up 40% in tokens, I would say.
Nice. That is amazing. Yeah, that was something I just wanted to share that on the screen here as well. This is something that I didn't know about. I think it was Stu that pointed it out to me. So thanks for this one, Stu. And he was basically showing like the LP reward APRs, and I just again, massive noob. I saw the 0.022% or whatever it is when you create the liquidity pool. But again, this alters with the volume and the amount of liquidity that's through it as well. So I mean, look at some of these opportunities. I mean, this is the DAI Pulsechain, USD Pulsechain. So I saw some here the other day of like 600% APR, and again, it won't be something that lasts for a long time, but you know, you can still create a pool, and then from that 600%, you can just leave behind everything that was in there and just let it do its thing. And that's the whole beauty around liquidity providing. And it really seems like everything in Pulsechain has really been set up to kind of like democratize that process and make it accessible for like the little guy. You don't have to be a whale to do this. You can do it with such tiny positions that anyone can make a difference on their financial future through liquidity providing.
And that's a big part of percentages, and it doesn't matter. Like getting the teddy bear wrap pulse pool right now, like I have way more of it than you do, but you know what? We're both going to make that same 1% a day on our money. Like I think it's about a 1/3% probably, but it's, you know, if you put $1 in, you're going to make your 3 pennies. If I put $100 in, I'm going to make my $3. If the next guy puts 10,000 in, he's going to make his $300. And because we all got in there together, we're all going to make more because there's more money, you know, it takes money to make money kind of thing.
I love it.
So like, yeah, don't compare yourself to others. You know, it's not me just talking to you. It's me talking to anyone that listens. Like, you know, figure out what works best for you, and you know, find happiness in making some of these LPs literally and just making money while you sleep, right? Because like, think about how many times you traded a chart, and even if you cash out a 2 or a 3x, right, that chart goes and does 10x, and you just feel like crap because you missed out on a 10x, especially when all your friends got a 10x and you only got 2x. So now all of a sudden, let's say you put $100 in, you do 2x, right, 3x, you make 300 bucks, and now you're sad because you didn't make so much more, right? And it's like it's this never-ending casino process that we have in our play, right? That's why this is fun. The blinky lights keep going, but like get into LP and just get this like slow, steady dopamine hit that when you lay down in bed at night, you're like, ah, oh, I don't have to worry about anything. I'm making money right now, and you just like go to sleep. Oh, it's so good.
And I think that's what really attracted me to it as well. The whole like mindset shift and the way that it affects your mind and your body is completely different to, like you just said, swing trading or trading a chart. So there's so many benefits to it, but it's more of a long-term, steady mindset, which I think a lot of people don't really have in cryptocurrency. They have the short-term, want it now kind of mindset. And yeah, like I said, I'm not going to lie, I also have that from time to time. So,
yeah, definitely. I mean, that just makes me think of Pulse and Pulse X even more, right? It's like people can sit here and go back and forth. Which one's going to do this? Which one's going to do that? And I'm just like, yo, they're both the same thing. Y'all sacrifice them. They were not in LP. People are going to dump them into LP until the pendulum swing hits, right? Like everything we have here has a pendulum to it, to where none of them were in LP, to where half of them came through LP, to where all of them have been bought or sold at some point in time, right? And once they have all, like when you get to the bottom of the pendulum swing, that's when you want to pull your LP, because your pulse is no longer getting filled anything other than the trading fee, right? It's no longer magic money coming from nowhere. That runs out eventually, and it might be like honestly probably the next cycle, because a lot of people are just going to hold through all of this. A lot of people that understand this are in the Pulse X LP for years, bro. Like they're not planning on taking out. They're just sitting there. If they need money, they sell their ink, and ain't nobody with that much money selling it for ink for penny. Like the long-term players totally know what's coming.
That's definitely that's a part of a third of my overall bag. I've pretty much devoted to providing liquidity. I just dabbled my toes and I've slowly scaled in more and more. And yeah, I'm looking at the gains after like 6 months, and I was never planning on selling this anyway, so I may as well put it to work and support the ecosystem and just generate yields on it. It just makes sense. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I never did liquidity before Pulsechain, and dabbled slowly into it here, and wrote these things down and did some little experiments, and made A1A and watched A1A work and prove a theory to myself, and then find a tropa and be able to put that education into someone else's theory and prove that it worked. And I'm 95%, but I don't know, I'm probably 90% in LP. Easy.
Wow. Okay. So, what would you, if you're looking at a new? I always think of Atropa because that's normally where I'm dabbling. Do you look at that and like, okay, I'm going to buy this token, and then straight away you put it into some kind of LP based on your overall LP understanding?
That's different math for every token, right? Like, have you been keeping up with like the leprosy token in kind of this last week?
Yes, I have actually. I covered it on my YouTube the other day, and I've seen like there's all these new 666 tokens that have been plugged into it.
All right. So when I was just talking about a pendulum, right? Leprosy is the entrance into all these other tokens. And most of these tokens, 99% of their supply is in the LP with leprosy, right? So if I go and buy, if let's say leprosy is at $10,000, and I go and buy one of these tokens, I'm paying $10,000. But I'm also what was 1-to-1, I've now pushed the second one. Let's say like there's a purple heart one, deviation, I think. You token A, token B, you take leprosy and you buy deviation, you push those two away, right? It's a multiplier. So as leprosy goes down in dollar value, so does the dollar value of all those 666 coins with it, right? So now maybe I can buy leprosy for $750 and still go in and buy 1-for-1 and get one. Now I might have got it cheaper, but I'm also pushing it away from leprosy, right? Like it's just a leprosy multiplier, token A to token B. The same thing with I forget the handful of names that just went through, mandate and but yeah, the last 5 or 6 that came out, right? So if I want to buy it now, I can buy a token, but I'm going to pay a premium because the entry token's at a premium. If the entry token, which is now at like $2,000, now I can go buy that shit for, one token for a quarter of what it was before, as if I enter now. But if I've been holding either one of them, they just amplify, each other. So like 99% of the supply of that token of 5 of those tokens is literally just sitting there in LP for people to buy, and no one's buying it because no one understands that all they are is multipliers on this other thing.
So you're saying pretty much. So I've got it up on my screen now because I've pretty much been keeping it here because I've been trying to analyze it. You're saying they're all good buys, essentially. All these 6/6 tokens that are connected to it. You've got Devitation, Jethro, Uncle Tom, Cletus. Man,
Right. So I'm not necessarily. It depends on what you're buying and what you're selling, right? What's the swap? Is it a good swap? Well, if you think leprosy will have value one day, then yes, because you're buying a multiplier of leprosy, right? But if leprosy goes to $10, it doesn't matter if you're 2x leprosy, you're only worth $20 and you bought it at 2,000, right? But if leprosy goes to 100,000 and your token is 2x leprosy, then you're worth 200,000.
right. Okay. So obviously, if leprosy is going up, then these end up being good buys, and if it doesn't, then well, you've quote unquote lost.
Right.
Hmm.
If you're playing dollar value in those tokens, you'll most likely lost. But if you switch your chart to, deviation / leprosy, and you look at that and you see, okay, deviation is 1.2x of leprosy, then you know that this token is worth 20% more than leprosy. And as more people buy it, it'll get farther and farther away from leprosy.
Okay. I'm gonna have to do another video on that as well, to be honest, because it's really interesting to watch it unfold. So, and really noticing different things between the pairs. So, oh no, that's Jethro.
That's the same thing between token A, token B, and up the chain, right? If the one that you're paired to the most moves, you move with it.
I see. Okay, I see. Yeah, because they all, like you said, the majority of their supply. So I've got I've pre-opened the Explorer up, but I think pretty much it's got like they're all 666 tokens, and leprosy, like one leprosy, 100 leprosy. So like 15% of the supply is paired to like 99% of the supply of the other 666 tokens. So it leverages. It's a multiplier.
Right. So you have a fair launch from a well-known dev with 99% of the token available for purchase in liquidity. And like that tells me how much people just don't understand what's going on here. But like that's how you make a community token, right? So like the heart one, I like the heart one. I like the purple heart thing. Maybe one day I'll make something that, helps wounded veterans or families of fallen. Like I understand how it works, and I understand that I started buying it at, leprosy at $4,000, and then I continue to buy it at 3,000 and 2,000. Right? I'm DCAing my entry, but I'm also pushing leprosy away from this other thing, right? And it's so easy to get X's when you have that much in supply that like I could 10x the price of any of those tokens from leprosy, probably enough to get my money back. And if I did that right and put a couple of LPs on there with Pulse, those LPs would fill with Pulse on the way up, and I could just pull all that Pulse at the top and then sell it right back in and pull out in a different route that has liquidity.
Mm. And yeah, that whole game with the Atropa ecosystem of going through the right kinds of routes is really about trying to find thick liquidity pools when you go to the contract address, and really seeing, because I think people make the mistake, like you mentioned earlier, of just thinking in terms of Pulsechain. And if you come through these routes with just Pulsechain, then there's a massive slippage because the pools they're not that thick. They'll be like quite tiny actually. Well, generally quite tiny. So
Well, I'm sorry I didn't put enough in them, but no one else seems to do it on most of them.
So you think
Yeah, I
adding
mean,
the liquidity?
414 coins, Wrapped Pulse V2. I'm in 80% of them.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Wow. So you're saying with Wrapped Pulse to the majority of the 414s, you're providing liquidity for a lot of those.
Yeah, most of. I mean, I'm not gonna say most, but definitely a majority. I'd say half the ecosystem wouldn't have a Wrapped Pulse pool if it wasn't for me.
And it's actually quite a genius idea, because that's people's, like, that's the easy mode. That's the easiest access into the ecosystem through Pulsechain.
All right. So I mean, it's the basis of crypto, right? Is you take your real money and you buy these fake things, and I could hold Teddy Bear, and Teddy Bear could go up 1,000x, right? But like we talked about before, that reality between when you buy it up 1,000x and you create all this fake money between liquid and market cap, it's like it comes down even harder exponentially as it goes up. So like you might do 1,000x, but when you hit the press button, is your price impact 10, 20 of those x's? Like is 100 of those x's? Like there's a lot more to think about there, But in the LP, you just collect your fees on that the whole way.
And that's really one of the truest ways of supporting the Atropa ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, support both coins, right? If you anything you put in LP, you're putting up for sale. You're supporting that both of those coins, saying, here you go, trade on them, but pay me for it.
Oh, man. Wow. A lot to learn, a lot to digest. Sunny, this has been amazing. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate you sharing so much, always with the community and with myself. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or finish up on or talk about?
No, man. I mean, I'm always in the pub after you process some things or you have questions. Always feel free to come by. Like, I want you to have the right answers and the right, even if we thought differently on how and where to invest, like that doesn't matter. But like, there's some baseline facts and like that simple math and those things. Like, I do like everyone to be on the same playing field for that, because there's no advantage to other people not knowing other than dumping on their head, obviously. But like, there's enough here for everyone, and work together we can make more.
That's been one of the main things that I've loved about your chat as well, to be honest. That was something that I resonated with immediately. So I really appreciate that I've found this community that's run by you, and it seems to be attracting all people with that same kind of mindset as well, which is what I really love. So it feels like a home away from home in Sunny's pub. So again, man, thank you for all that you do for the community, for giving away all this alpha for free. People would sell this stuff for courses for thousands of dollars, like really, but you're just really just helping people from the goodness of your heart. And I love your vision. I love the Sunny's trees, and I want to just support everything just for Sunny's trees. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to share all the Telegram chats as well. I'll share with mETH Labs, Sunny's Pub, PLS Pup. I know that there was some people who there was Joe in here who was saying he's been banned. So I know that there's people that have been banned from Sunny's Pub as well. So maybe I'm not too sure what some of those reasons might have been, but Yeah, you don't have those links.
So on Telegram, you have to make a public username. If you don't have one, it'll ban you. And if you join the group and don't say anything for 90 days, it'll auto kick you out. So like, you don't have to join the group to spy. And then if the first thing you send is a link, it'll ban you for that too. Because we had a lot of bots and stuff. But feel free to, I don't know, just like, if you reply to any of my Twitter posts with an @ on TG, whenever I see it, I'll just unban you. It's the easiest way.
Okay. All right. There you go. So anyone who's been banned, those were the rules. That's probably the reason why you were banned. So amazing. All right. Thank you, Sunny. I'm gonna stop this share of this screen. So anything else before I close the screen?
That's it, man. I appreciate you too and what you put out in the community, man. You're one of I really don't follow any influencers, and I like your energy. I like what you put out there. So I hope that you succeed in all of this as well.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, and I actually kind of hate the word influencer because I don't want to be perceived as an influencer. I really want to I'm just here to share, and I want to share like the goodness of what we're achieving here, because I think we have that same mindset of let's do this together. So, but I appreciate the kind words, and yeah, thank you so much, man. And I'll see you in the pub.
Sounds good, brother. Cheers.
Take care, bro. All right, so I'm just going to exit out of there. And what I'll do for everybody else here, I'll just exit out of the pub so I'm not distracting them there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share all these links in the chat. I might even be able to share them in the show notes. I couldn't get to everything. So I noticed there, KSBB, you were talking about, you were asking about BFF. So BFF, so all the things that Sunny and I were talking about, you could probably consider BFF to be part of how that's actually going to work. So I know that the plan there is, or the thinking around it is really to get to this 8K level and then start providing liquidity. And then as that liquidity pool thickens up, you're cushioning the downside. But it's also providing an attractive place for people to buy, because if all these tokens aren't sitting in people's wallets, they're actually sitting in liquidity, that's sell pressure that's removed from the ecosystem that new buyers can look at and go, oh, there's a supply of 777. So let's say 700 of those supply is put in liquidity. That means only 77 tokens will get sold, but 700 will get bought. So it makes it really attractive for new people. And that's why people are really looking at some of these targets of, like Zach was talking about, 100K, and that there's some big targets that are being thrown around. So that's the kind of thinking that's happening around BFF and around really everything in the Atropa ecosystem. So what I'll do is, so A1A and B2B, look those up. You got the mETH ecosystem. So I'm also going to, basically, I'll just grab all these TGs now, just in case I can't put it in the description. I'm pretty sure that I can. So let me just quickly find that mETH one. So that's with all the different tokens in there. So this is the welcome to the mini ETH lab. So here we go here. So this is the mini ETH lab, and what else did we have? Oh, we had PulseXM, so Pulse Christmas. So I'll post that one in there as well. And I'm also going to post PLS Pup. So that's well, he goes by the username as PLS Pup, and he's basically understood what A1A was and started to replicate that as well. So I'll post that one in there as well. So just bear with me, because I'm in quite a few different chats. So where is it? They'll usually probably be towards the bottom. And any other questions? So while I'm looking, you guys can feel free to ask some questions, and I'll try and answer those before I close up the stream. Why can't I find PLSX Christmas? This is the thing with the Atropa ecosystem. There's lots of new tokens, and then as a new token gets created, like a new community gets created around it, which is really cool. because it means that they all have their own individual personalities, but at the same time, it also means that there's a lot of Telegram groups that I'm involved in because of it. So some are archived, some are not. Where is these two last ones? Here we go. So PLS at Christmas. So this is Christmas. So this is the Christmas one. So this one, so the PLS Xmas is rewards in PulseX just by holding. The mini ETH lab, it's a range of different tokens. So some of them will give the rewards in from ETH of that equivalent, and one of them gives it in the wrapped ETH on Pulsechain. So it's really like giving you a reward in Pulsechain, because the wrapped ETH on Pulsechain and the Pulsechain is like that, it's 1-to-1. Okay, so the final one. Am I in PulseX Pup? I hope I am. Perhaps I'm not. And if I'm not, and if PulseX Pup is still listening, feel free to copy and paste your Telegram if there is one. I thought I was in it. I got so many here, man. Maybe I'm not in that one. But take a look at that token all the same. I might not be in that Telegram. But then where is the Teddy PLS farm? So when we talk about those kinds of farms, we're talking about the liquidity pools, so not necessarily the farms. So when you go on PulseX, you've got the farms, which are actually you're getting rewards in ink. We were talking about liquidity pools, so that's a different part of Pulsechain, so a different part of PulseX. So I might just quickly share my screen again. So give me 1 second, see if I can actually do this. Yes, I can do this. So give me a second. So I'll share the screen. Okay, so, or is it? Was it sharing the whole time? I'm not sure. Okay, so present, share screen. All right, so the entire screen, here we go. Okay, so on PulseX, so you've got the farms. So when you click on earn, so these are the farms where if you provide liquidity in these, you're getting the rewards, the APR here in INC. So this is the reward token for the farm. The majority of the conversation we were talking about, it's providing liquidity, but not in the farm. So the way that you're doing that, when you're on the main screen, you would go to liquidity, and then you'll see all your different liquidity pools here. And it's actually very simple. So I'm not going to connect my wallet because I don't want to dox myself. I'm not sure which wallet it's connected to, but essentially it's very simple. So most of the time you would go to V2. So V1 is where those farms are. So most people do V2, and then you would simply just go to add liquidity, and you select your tokens that you want to add into the liquidity. So for example, you would have, I hope I've got Teddy here. All right, so I've got Teddy Bear here, and then Pulsechain. So then it's as simple as that. And then you would enter a figure here, and whatever the ratio is in that pool, it will basically enter that amount of Pulsechain. Now, the interesting thing with Pulsechain is obviously you have so many new tokens. So for example, if I use A1A as an example, what I want to do is I want to find it on Dex Screener. I will first of all want to make sure that it's the right kind of contract. And the way that you would really verify that is when you see the same contract in many different pools, so you know, okay, that's going to be the right one. You would also go to the Telegram to make sure if you really wanted to as well. I would definitely recommend doing it a variety of ways, especially if you're new. I've got more confident that I just have confidence that, yeah, okay, this is the right one because I can see the contract address here just repeated. So, okay, that must be the right one. It's connected to all these pools. So when you do open up one of those pools, you would scroll down here and you would go to A1A and you just click on the contract address and it copies it. So then when I want to make a pool with A1A, when I add here, I would just copy and paste that pool, and then bang, it's going to import A1A. And then, yep, I understand it's an unknown source. And then I can make a pool with A1A and anything that I want to. So A1A and a Tropa, for example. So in this particular instance, it would be the first liquidity provider. So this is This is also what Sunny was talking about towards the end with pairing up a lot of the Atropa tokens with Pulsechain. So when you're the first one in that pool, then you are the one that sets the ratio. And so when you set the ratio, normally the best way to set the ratio is you would set it to the dollar value try and get it as close as possible. But one of the interesting things that we're seeing with the Atropa ecosystem is how these different tokens can leverage against each other and multiply against each other based on the way that these ratios are set. So, so yes, and always make sure that you're on. Thanks for that. Yes. Ahmad Bari. So thanks for that, Ahmad Bari. Definitely always be on V2. So I have made that mistake myself. Sometimes you'll accidentally create one in V1, but it's no big deal if you do. And like Sunny was saying, just do it with small amounts. If you, especially if you're learning, this is the way that I've approached it. I've started with just small amounts. So I'll start with $10 on each side. So $10 here, $10 here, and I'll write it in a sheet. So I've got my spreadsheet, and I'll write down the date that I've put it in, so I can always check back onto that date how much tokens I put in, the pool itself, and the contract address as well. So you write all that information in, and you just experiment. And the beauty is it doesn't cost much at all. It's like less than a penny to actually create these pools. And if you do make the mistake that accidentally it was on V1, no problem. You can just end the liquidity. So once it's created, it will be here in this list, and you can take from it and add to it. And again, it's only going to cost just less than a penny. So if you make that mistake, you can go into the V2. But sometimes as well, there are certain strategies, which is sort of the next level that I'm not quite at yet, but I have actually started experimenting with creating a V1 and a V2 of the same tokens, and just seeing, okay, what happens when I do a V1 and V2 and compare and see which one ends up being better. It's just a whole learning process for me. So hopefully that makes things clear. But all the same, whether it's a farm or whether you go to liquidity, it's providing liquidity. It's just that these are farms where you're generating the reward token, and the other ones you're actually generating yield on the two tokens that you provide by people actually trading within those tokens. So hopefully that makes sense. So awesome, guys. Unless there's any other questions, I might wrap that up and end the stream from here. Hopefully that was really good. I know for myself, I mean, Sunny, GOAT. He's the LP GOAT. He's a giver. He has Richard Hart always talks about the giving being the giving tree. And when you see these types of guys in our ecosystem, it makes me feel really blessed to be in this ecosystem with people of this kind of caliber who are really trying to help everybody and share their wisdom and share their knowledge. So I know for myself, I'll definitely have to go back to this, and I'll be listening to this multiple times, because it's something where the depth of and the quality of the information there is going to take a few times to really listen. And just like Sunny says, just experiment. That's the way to learn. So start clicking the buttons, play the game, listen to this stream again and again, and have that mindset of just being long-term minded, compounding, and thinking about how this is going to help your future, not the short-term gain. If you want short-term gain, liquidity pools is not really the thing for you. Liquidity pools is about long-term and really just treating it like real estate and just skimming the yield off the top. As you keep snowballing that out and growing your liquidity pools, you can really live off this for the rest of your life. Once these prices start to multiply as well, you might think, okay, yeah, now this token is only worth $1, and this token is only worth $1. But let's say after a bull market and a pullback, now those tokens are worth $10. So you've 10x'd on the value of the token, plus you've generated a percentage of yield by holding the liquidity. So then you only just need to live off that liquidity. You don't need to I've made a 10x and I'm going to pull it all out. You've got the 10x in the new tokens that you've got the yield in. This is the beauty of liquidity providing. And if you do that enough, you can really set yourself up. And this is the kind of system that I want to be a part of, where it's let's work together to win. Let's not dump on each other. Let's leave that world behind. Let's leave that game behind, because it sucks that there's only a small percentage of people to win. I want us all to win. That's what this channel is all about. Really, coexistence is about everybody winning together. And so I think liquidity providing is a massive key to that, and a lot of alpha today. So yes, I will do this. With Fux. So Fux is going to be the same principle. There'll just be different kinds of buttons, but it'll be exactly the same principle on Fux as it will be with PulseX. So there'll just be something where I'll take a look into it. Actually, I'll take a look into it. I must admit, I'm definitely. I wouldn't say I'm a maxi, but I pretty much only use PulseX because it's got the buy and burn feature as well, and it really supports a Richard Hart ecosystem more, I feel. So I definitely stick to that rather than the other dexes. I don't know if you would call me a maxi from that. It also just keeps it simple. If I start spreading it out up to like all the 3 or 4 different dexes, it just starts to complicate things for my mind. I like to keep things very simple. So, but I'll take a look into it, and I'll probably make a video for that in the future. I can't promise anything in the short term, but I definitely will consider it in the pipeline. So with that, thank you very much, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed. Take care, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.